Chapter 13. Egypt, Mother of Religions. How could one who was never gifted with writing make known the full depth of pleasure that floods the physical being after successfully completing the Persian mysteries? Through the ages, these ceremonies had been designed to carry a mighty impact. So clear was the message: man has the choice of good or evil with his own heart, mind, and will. So beautiful is the realization the power of thought is the near divine force in man's life, greater than the power of flesh. So upsurging is the truth: the pure self is held captive to the base self. So vivid is the picturization: any man is at last fully dependent upon his own will and faith, and must use them to cross the vast crevice from bondage of the spirit to freedom. So obvious was the moral, at last even the divine Simorg, symbol of the eternal urge to human perfection, the source of the power of spirit within mind and body, even this sweet guide and companion must at last desert the one who would achieve the final act of complete faith and belief and move upon the great abyss. So perfect is the example, man who has conquered his emotions, mastered the minions of bad fate in endless battles of will, and daring such a man at last is free of all earthly claims. By faith, duty, and will he can raise the spirit from even the dross of the body. Yes, it was abundantly specific that he who can make spiritual the body deserves the holy unction, the christening of the newborn with sacred oil and fragrant ban, and thereafter was to be called the Anointed One, the Christos. I walked from the cave in the brotherly group of priests, the Christs of Persia. I was proud in my inner heart that my beloved masters Melchior, Balthazar, and Caspar were pleased with me. Yes, I was proud. How much had I accomplished in the long months now complete? I whispered in my heart. As we walked out into the glory of the morning sun, I heard the song of a lark, praising his world. At that moment of supposedly my highest spiritual elation, my heart was flooded with the sweet feel and warm glow of the Golden Girl. In that moment of religious fervor, I felt the unrequited love of man for maid. Was I an anointed one? By what right, if I could not control my thoughts and my passions? I looked, with a little shame, sidelong at my spiritually developed masters. Surely they could never have known such longing of the flesh. Was this not the Maya, the trap of flesh, which the yogis taught was a bar to all spiritual progress? Was I not accomplished as a yogi, having studied the 33 different types of yoga? Yet the song of a bird could fill my body with a rush of delight and longing too great for flesh to bear. I strove to get my mind out of the clutch of my despair. I recalled that my 3 wise masters had not yet taught me the magic of making myself and others invisible, changing the seeing of other men, and instilling the body of others with great energy and strength. I asked them about their promise. Balthazar's eyes twinkled with merriment. Ah, my newly anointed one, you must remember our words. We promised that after you had passed the secret initiation of the Persians, we would tell you how and where to learn the science of transmuting flesh and confounding sight. True. Caspar was gentle and smiling. We can and will tell you how and where you can learn this science. But remember, it is not the way of the initiate to assist anyone who does not first ask for help. Then I ask you, how and where can I learn this high science? Melchior's powerful voice brought the answer. By 7 years of study in the temples of the Mother of Religions. In Egypt? Yes, Egypt is the mother of religions. Druidism is the father. All religions took from them their original shoot to be transplanted into alien soil. Don't be glum, new Christ. This training to become a Christ of Persia is necessary before you can enter the final school in Egypt. You were not tricked, in truth. 7 years. I have been so far and so long from home. The very mention of the word made me know how bitterly lonely I was for my family, how I longed to see my sweet and beautiful mother, my brothers and sisters, and my beloved father, Joseph, secret master of the Essenes at Nazar. I was almost 21, and there was a vast loneliness in my soul and in every cell of my flesh. So great and aching was this loneliness that it made me again aware of my previous thoughts, that I was not worthy to be on the spiritual path. If I were spiritual, how could I feel the tugging of these fleshly things, like the power of a winch bringing home the anchor to set free the ship of self in the gales of passion? Achingly, I longed to see my youngest sister, the sprightly Ina, born in my 17th year according to letter. Born indeed at the time I was being driven out of the Druidic Britannin by angry priests for what? For what indeed? Skakus had my golden sword. What if he was commanded to return it when I had deserved the highest honor? How could I deserve such honor? Had I not passed all the tests of the external and the secret religions? Had I not become Christed, an anointed one? Surely there could be no higher degrees than that. Even as I reasoned thus in my mind, I was aware of my error. Too many things were not yet explained. Too many powers were not yet mine. Why, though I could sometimes heal, could I not prevent my own illness or cure it? Was I in truth the son of the flesh of Joseph? What was the meaning of the useless stones of the Druid temple? No, though I was not worthy, I had been given some of the greatness of spiritual truth. What was I but a partly trained Essene hunting the truth of God? Because of my unworthiness, should I not now abandon the search? I cried out in my seemingly hopeless despair and collapsed upon the pathway. Even as I did this, I despised myself. First, because I showed the emotional weakness of a child. Second, because I soiled the bright ceremonial robe with dirt of the desert hills. No one seemed to notice or to care while I sobbed out my passion and made to my three wise masters my confession of unworthiness. When I could frame the words, I cried out again, how long does the candidate ever become worthy? Ask Caspar, Balthazar said. He is greater and more worthy than I. When I turned my tear-stained face to Caspar, he said in his gentle way, ask Melchior. He is greater and more worthy than I. Before my gaze, Melchior shrugged his massive shoulders. Ask Skakus, he is greater and more worthy than I. An inner shudder struck through my being. Could it possibly be? Could Skakus the Egyptian druid, Skakus the cruel and vengeful, could he be greater than my beloved wise men of the East? I could only shudder at the thought. Ask Skakus what? His voice was at my elbow, whereby come Messiah he had appeared in less than a wink. Though my very cells rebelled from him, I did ask him, how long is the training? Does the candidate, will I ever become worthy? He smiled and said in his maddening way, ask yourself, you have all the answers. Even before I could recover from the surprise of such a callous answer, he added, or asked the priests of On. I looked around at the Persian hills, and the impossibility of his suggestion caused me to roil. I shot the words at him in anger. How can I ask them? And with my hands and eyes, I showed the emptiness and the space. His harsh voice held a little hint of triumph and laughter. First get your masters to teach you the external Egyptian religion. Then go to On and there ask for training in one of the 12 schools of the White Brotherhood. The White Brotherhood. The very words thrilled me, but even more made me realize how unworthy and unprepared I was. My heart was touched to a furious pounding by my old inborn curiosity, yet I felt the sickness of fear and doubt. But am I worthy of the White Brotherhood? The answer was as quick and as piercing as a bolt from a bow. No, you are not worthy. In my heart of hearts, I knew too well that his statement was true. That, of all unworthy persons in all the world, I was most unworthy. When I looked up questioningly, he said flatly, Neither was Joseph of Nazar, Joseph of Arimathea, Ramanchana, Romulo, Nicodemo, the Caribe master, Balthazar, Caspar, Melchior, or even Scacus. No, not even Scacus. He strode 3 paces with vicious energy, then turned. Nor was Tao Te Lin, therefore you must know that no man is ever worthy of divine initiation. Lest you think women are worthy, neither is Mary Ku worthy, but the choice is hers, even as the choice is yours. You must ask, else you may not receive. He turned away. I sat upon the ground, bitter, and nursing my strange and undisciplined reactions to one who was apparently a great initiate upon the path of truth. In every cell of my being I felt the strangest weight, a complete and deadly strangulation of the freedom of self, mind, energy. There was in me an intolerable blackness that grabbed upon and criticized my every breath, deed, act, or thought. It found such fault that I despised myself, and then despised myself for despising myself. Why am I so heavy, black, and glum? I asked Melchior. Never before have I known this weight of being, this black doubt, this deep-celled despair. Melchior sat upon his feet, flat on the trailway, in the manner of the Oriental. No. Always you have been serenely confident and gay. We of the Brotherhood have waited and watched in concern. No, until you have passed through this experience, you are of little value. At long last you are undergoing this purging of the cellular self, and we are pleased. Balthazar chuckled and said, mischievously, Yes, Anointed One, we cannot feel your groans and your pain does not hurt us. We are pleased, Melchior said again, to reassure my doubts that this could be part of the great pathway. You are undergoing now part of that great hell of the initiate. It is known as the deep night of despair. It is a soul anguish in 3 parts, but it is only one of the marks and way stations which guards the pathway. It is the reason the Hindus say that every student needs a guru. Each candidate must pass through these cruel and destroying experiences. Some are short and intense, some are long and deadly. The short ones cause the most intense suffering. The long ones cause years of anguish, disgust of self, and personal indolence. Let us pray yours is short and intense. Many times the longer ones cause the initiate to depart the path into debauchery or to lose the path forever. You see, as your body becomes more and more refined, as it becomes purer and cleaner of dross, it becomes more serviceable to the spirit. But each cell has a life and a right of its own. Though your mind gives up your body to the spirit, the cell may cling to its desire for the familiar dross. There comes a moment when the cell mind fights the system mind for its own self. If it wins, an initiate is lost. If the system mind wins, a new Christ is truly born. When the time comes that the spirit would be free of the enveloping body at will, you enter a battleground within the cell self. You enter a hell, a horror. There are 3 distinct deep nights, one each for the physical, mental, and spiritual self. Each of these horrible battles is necessary, it seems, as progress is made toward spiritualizing the flesh. The first is the physical deep night of despair. This you pass through in the cave of the fountain. Your flesh self was ill for 46 days, a time of despair and near death. Remember, this was only the first of 3. You are now happily in the mental deep night of despair. We know how futile you feel. You feel that all your emotions are uncontrollable. All your thoughts are stupid, or indeed you cannot think. We know that you feel that everything you have ever done or said was the height of futility, or was wrong. We know that you so analyze and criticize yourself, and hate the fact that your own disciplines have, deserted you, that you despise yourself. Then, knowing you were supposed to be upon the path, you even despise yourself for being weak enough to despise yourself. Balthazar chuckled and said as he squatted beside me, "Cheer up! You have not yet begun to suffer. Much worse is yet to come." Yet to come. These experiences are inevitable before the self can be made the perfect, obedient, willing servant of the Spirit. The inevitableness of this experience by the true initiate is the reason the Hindus and some others have taught the inevitableness of karma, for they mistakenly tried to apply the condition of the initiate to all men. Mark you well, there is still a worse time, a time of spiritual hell and doubt so intense that it will burn the last ashes of the dross from the flesh body and make the body fully serviceable to the mind and the spirit. This dreadful time is yet to come upon you. It will be like the greatest of all calamities. It will be 1,000 times worse than the mental deep night, just as the mental is 1,000 times worse than the physical deep night. Oh no, I moaned. Nothing could possibly be worse than this. Yes, 1,000 times worse. 3 loving voices made that dreadful promise. Melchior continued, "Remember what we teach you, for it may mean your very life. You can and will know worse anguish at the time of your spiritual deep night of despair. At that time, may the Supreme have mercy on your tortured being." I think I would have doubted even those 3 wise men, but that a priest of the Persian Christs came by, looked knowingly, and said, "What is with our new anointed one, the deep night?" When my friends nodded, he sadly wagged his head. "Must be mental. If it were spiritual, he would be writhing in agony." He turned away, chanting one of the ritual chants, and walked toward the priest's quarters. To these quarters we made our way, and I was assigned to chambers. There I stayed for many days, my soul achingly black with sick despair and anguish, and I was helpless to stop my despising myself. Then I became like a vegetable, sitting out the long, long hours in utter listlessness. Weeks went by, then months, and I sat wasting my life in the clutch of a despair I could not escape. My 3 mentors left me, which plunged me into ever deeper despair, and made a caravan trip. They came back after about 6 months, then went again. My mood changed. I began to actively hate my flesh. Many times I walked to high places, and the despair bade me throw myself to my destruction. A 100 times I was sorely tempted, but some thin thread of light kept me from doing so. Still again my mood changed. Once while walking I saw the lovely daughters of a merchant who brought goods to the priesthood. They were comely and approached me. I lusted after them in my mind. One I singled out and courted, and gained her consent with the offer of one of the jewels of the Order of Persian Christs. But she was taken on a trip the morning before our proposed night of trysting, and I knew basic hate. I walked and ran for hours in the desert, enjoying the punishment of the heat and the whipping thorns. The 3 wise men came again, and I was still in deep despair. For a week or more they tried to talk with me, but I was too listless, too vegetative. Then they came one morning and said, "We must be gone 2 years. We are taking a trading caravan to Egypt. God stays with you." I could not answer, and they turned away in sorrow and started down the trail. I watched them go with a strange mixture of emotion. The deep night was still in every cell. My body was a heavy, repulsive mass, at least so it seemed, but the word Egypt had lighted a single spark of warmth somewhere near the center of my head, right behind my ears. This single bright spark seemed to glow more brightly than the sun, than a million suns. It seemed to feed upon the very blackness of the cells around it. A fire was begun that circled warmly and relaxingly through the cells of my brain. Then it ate away the blackness in the cells of my throat, my neck, my trunk, and at last my legs. That glowing warmth seemed to eat away shackles that held me to the spot, as gyves hold a bird that would fly. How long the process took, I do not know. But suddenly my whole body was clear, and I was light and free of the burden of hell. I shouted a glad cry, and 100 priests were soon about me. I cried aloud to God my fervor and my thanks, for I was truly one newborn. The priests all cheered me, comforted me, and dried my tears of joy. The Archimagus came and was joyful, and filled the air with his thanks and praises to the almighty Zerona Akerne, the mighty God. I thanked the Archimagus for his love, for his care. I kissed his feet and begged that he would forgive me. But I must catch my 3 beloved wise men and go with them to Egypt. The Archimagus merely nodded in pleased agreement. My departure was delayed, for over 300 priests wanted to help me and send me rejoicing on my way. Their love for me was clear, and I was at last handed my bundle ready to go in 10 times the moments I could have prepared it myself. I started for the path, the priests followed. I knew for them such a love as only he who is released from hell may know for the angels who stood guard at the entranceway praying for his release. I sped over the trail. My feet were light, my body was swift, my mind was alive and alert. Hour after hour, I raced along without stopping until I overtook the long caravan. I raced ahead until I caught up with the 3 wise men. They dismounted from their carts and stood near each other as I came up. I raced to them, fell upon my knees, and embraced the 6 legs. O masters of wisdom, take me with you to Egypt, and teach me the knowledge of the mother of religions. Soon happy tears were mingled from cheek to cheek as we embraced, and we went about the business of our lives. During months of travel, I was taught the religion of Egypt by the 3 wise men. I was compelled to learn well, for I knew I would have to pass an intense examination before I could enter the White Brotherhood, though I sometimes hinted, and once boldly asked, no mention of that order came from my masters. It was as if I had dreamed a dream of hearing the name, and they did not even recognize the sounds. But they taught me night and day. Even when I did my work around the caravan, repairing and making saddles and carts, sometimes trading for special goods, even then one of the 3 wise men was with me. They let no minutes go by when they could teach me that they did not do so. During the months of my 24th year, we moved slowly in a westward direction, crisscrossed the lands of each country, searching for unusual treasures of every sort. Sometimes the main caravan lay over at a town or city, while smaller components set out to distant villages to buy or barter. At one time, we sent 600 cartloads northward toward Jerusalem. Thence by ship some would go on to Rome. We came to the shores of the Red Sea. We turned northward and inland and spent several weeks at an Arabian town called Medina. Hundreds of tribesmen from 20 desert tribes roistered, gambled, drank until besotted, and fought and died in this town. Some few Arabian tribesmen were pious. They worshipped idols and images of all sorts. Their only pure worship was of a black stone called Kaaba, which they believed came from the heaven of the supreme god, Aila. Their religion was confused, much like the ancient men of Judah. When they were pious, they were fierce and fanatic in their faith and would suffer any pain for their beliefs. Of such emotional fanatics are prophets born. From Medina, town of prophets unborn we called it, we turned northward to skirt the end of the Red Sea, which separated the Arabian desert from the borderlands of Egypt. After several days of long marches, we cleared the end of the long sea and turned northwesterly toward Cairo and a nearby sea town with all its wharves and piers. While some of our caravan traded with the natives for special Egyptian cloths and other goods, we made heavy seaworthy crates. We soon had our material packed and ready for shipment to Rome, Athens, and even my beloved Britannin. Some goods, especially Egyptian pink and golden vessels, we shipped directly to Caesarea for delivery to Mount Carmel Essene Assembly. We were busy checking, building, packing. Still my wise men lost no moment in which they could teach me more and ever more of the religions of the ancient Egyptians. At first, the study seemed to be hopelessly confused. The Egyptians had a god for almost each hour of the day, and their functions overlapped until it was almost impossible to understand what each truly symbolized. But at last, I began to see the mighty religion in all its purity, stripped of its ritual and panoply, stripped to its magnificent heart, a heart so wondrous that truly I knew it could never die. I knew why Egypt was called Mother of Religions. We had been stopped in our travels by Roman legionnaires, burly, overconfident, and strutting minions of Caesar and Rome. The religion of Egypt would stand 10,000 years of Caesar. Rome could never become the center of true religion, for the mother religion of Egypt contained hidden in its complicated structure, waiting for the wise and persistent student, all the religions of the world. It was like the religion of the mighty Druids, and in many ways showed those nice improvements which told the serious student that Egypt was a colony and not the original source of Druidism or some religion quite similar in origin. When at last our vast shipments were sent to agents across the Mediterranean, we gathered our caravan and crossed to the Nile River and moved southward along its fertile banks. Possibly no river in the world is so adored and so worthy of adoration as the lush Nile. I did not marvel that some Egyptian beliefs made the Nile River into a god. When we left the delta lands of the mouth, we came upon a village called Fayouam, where there were 30 barges and 7 swift barks waiting to take the caravan up the long river. I was not to go far. We loaded 1 additional barge with special reference to my stay at the Temple of the Sun on an island which was called on. This island was also called Kusna, which translates to land of God or heaven, or possibly more nearly paradise. When we were opposite the island of on our barge, left the others and moved straight for a small cove within the island. This land of God must have been a paradise indeed. Its top rose about 50 feet above the flood stage of the river. We could see mighty temples to many different gods. In the center, we could see the enormous temple of Osiris, also called the Temple of Thoth Hermes, for the 2 great gods were worshipped in the same sprawling complex of buildings. But of all the colorful buildings, with magnificent statuary and golden towers, none took our attention so much as 2 small temple complexes of simple white and golden marble. The golden temple was high above the water of the cove, on a small spit of land that was almost an island. The white temple stood on the main island at the edge of the sandstone cliffs, directly across the cove from the golden one. I was caught up in the splendor of that island, land of God. To the 2 small temples I reacted with a special knowing of their importance in my destiny. I stood looking up the river at the temples. Caspar came to the rail beside me. His hand swept out toward the golden temple. Hor Keru, we call it Virgin of the World. I tried to make a translation of the 2 Egyptian words, but could not. They meant eternal woman, glory of womanhood, virgin mother, eternal virgin. I too gave up and accepted the name Virgin of the World. To which of the 1,000 goddesses is it dedicated? It is dedicated to the eternal Virgin. It is run as a training school for the priestesses of all goddesses under the direction of Isis. In the thousands of goddesses I have memorized, I never heard of the eternal Virgin. She is not named as a goddess. She is the source of gods." Caspar turned away, almost as if he had said too much. I felt the thrill of the unknown going up my spine, and there was a definite pre-knowing that my fate was involved in that mystery. Caspar stopped as he started into the door of the deck pavilion and waved at the white temple. Temple of Horus, son of the Virgin. I stood in the late sun watching the island as we glided toward it, borne by the breeze in our lantern sail and guided by an enormous oar. I was so enchanted with the island that I did not notice the teak and ebony bark which we had to pass at the tip of the cove, where the mouth was narrowest. But suddenly my body lighted up from within, and each cell of my being became a lute of joyous strings. I heard the love music of the spheres, felt the pull upon my being, and my eyes turned toward the deck of the ebony-railed bark. Even before my eyes found her, my heart had sailed to her on wings of adoration. The golden girl stood at the ebony rail, one hand raised to shade her eyes from the slanting sun, the other touching the railing. She stood upon a golden rug surrounded by purple cords upon golden stands. She was guarded by 2 watchful guards, strong, silent, and sure. We glided noiselessly toward our pier. Our barge passed only inches from her bark, and we were so close our 2 hands might have touched had. We reached over much. I could see the wisps of fine-spun golden gossamer-like hair that floated upon the gentle breeze and seemed to surround her head with a golden halo. Her slender body was encased in an Egyptian sheath of sea green, so finely spun that it seemed part of her flesh. It was cut so that one shoulder was bare, and over her shoulders floated a thin veil of silk, worn like a shawl, that covered but did not hide the beauty of her neck and shoulders. Her skin was fair, and so transparent she seemed to shine from within her flesh as a succulent grape reflects the life-giving sun. Her face was slender but strong, her brow was high and made a haven for her wide-set jade-green eyes. Her nose was long but fine and flared into dimpled nostrils. Her lips were the richest coral, formed perfectly into an upward sweep, as if she smiled from some constant inner joy. As I looked at her, our eyes met, and I plunged beyond the mirror of the surface of green into an ocean heaven deeper than all the joys of my entire life. Every cell of my being seemed to try to crowd into my gaze and strive to take root in the highest heaven. The thrill of her passed into my self as water goes into desert sand, making it fertile and fecund, giving it the yearning to new life to push eternity upward into the golden sun. Her lips parted in a smile of complete recognition, and her hand came forward almost as if she wanted to reach to touch me across the distance. I leaned toward her, for my being adored her, and the blood of my manhood raced and roared its newly awakening yawns in my ears. I tried to smile, but could not. I tried to speak, but could not. But her smile was radiant, and she spoke, and her voice seemed to float upon the breeze like some pure-toned golden bell, perfect, deep, and true. "Welcome to Kusna, beloved of God." I felt the sweet magic her voice made within me. I felt the pure joy her beauty made within me, and I felt her presence making a true man of me. Though I longed to speak, to answer, I could not do so. My lost voice was hidden in one of the many mansions of my adoring, but my inner being leaped across the space and kissed her coral lips, and she seemed pleased, for her smile grew even wider, wider with tender understanding and friendliness. I sent my adoration by the soul light of my eyes as the distance between us began to grow. I began to move backward along the rail, staying as near to her as I could. When at last I had come to the stern rail, I was held by circumstance and carried slowly away from her. My heart was tight with its fast beating, and each cell of me had become a chalice drinking its fill of her golden wonder. Behind me I heard the swift feet of my 3 wise men, and then Melchior's voice leading the others in salutation. "Meriku, how very beautiful you are! My heart sings adoration to you." Did I imagine that her smile lessened? But she bowed slightly and said gaily, "Thank you, masters of the Magi. Beauty springs from the soul of the beholder." Even as they exchanged courtesies, the ships drew apart. I wanted to reach and touch her. For 10 years she had been the joy of my inner thought. For 10 years she had been the joy of my inner thought. She had been the cause of my rebound location from death in the cave of temptations. I struggled to master myself and put all of my love into my words. "Thank you." So much more I wanted to say, but how could I say to such a golden one, "Thank you for my life," and I love you, Mariku. My 2 words seemed to be symbol words to her, filled with the meaning of my secret heart. Her smile was again so wonderful, and her eyes were upon mine even as she spoke to the 3 wise men. Her eyes were upon mine, making my soul warm and golden. She stood serenely, almost as tall as I, one hand on the rail and another raised to shield her eyes. With silken shawl and golden hair streaming in the wind, she looked like a soaring angel. Suddenly there were wild calls for the hurried and precise requirements of landing at our own pier. When I had bound the hawsers to berth the barge, I turned to see her moving up the golden stairs that led from the water line to the temple above. How lightly she moved, truly like an angel in flight. I turned to the business of my visit, the preparation for a 7-day-long examination of my knowledge of the mother religion, by men who had become masters of the world. Therefore we left the barge quickly, climbed granite stairs which were polished by thousands of feet, and entered the gate of the awe-inspiring Temple of Hermes. It was a sprawling complex of buildings and activities. There were many wings which were complete self-sustaining little communities. They had pastures, barns, fields. They had rooms and schooling areas for candidates and temples for priestly functions and for the worship of the gods. We moved directly toward the center of the complex down a corridor of giant granite columns overlaid with gold and precious gems. In the distance, at the end of this impressive corridor, was the entrance to a mammoth temple, the Temple of Osiris. On each facade of this giant building were statues and fantastic symbols in pure gold encrusted with priceless gems. As we moved along the corridor, gongs sounded, and our procession was swelled by priests who came into the corridor behind us from the many different smaller temple complexes. The music of lutes, pipes, drums, and zinars joined in perfect cadence and sweet melody. We were stopped by a hierophant at the lowest of 33 steps which led to the temple. Silently to the sound of music. I was disrobed, bathed in ashes, manure, honey, milk, and then water, and then clothed in a simple robe. It was made like a rainbow, of stripes of many colors, and it fitted perfectly. There was no seam in the garment. It seemed to be made of many patches, not sewn together, but woven together with threads dyed with loving and exacting care. The silent hierophant motioned us on into the massive temple of Osiris. We made for the alcove of the nave that opened upon the golden statues of Isis and Horus Osiris, the hawk-headed. We stopped before a small rug that compelled one to look and marvel. It was a royal purple and was surrounded by golden cords supported upon stanchions. It was a small replica and opposite in color to the rug of the golden girl Mariku. The 3 wise men knelt and seemed to worship before that rug. The 3 wise men knelt and seemed to worship before that rug. I was led on to a straw mat beneath the statue of Osiris. The procession then slowly passed me where I had been left standing, circled back by the purple rug, and made their worshipful bows before it. No words were spoken, and no one paid attention to me. Slowly the music died, and the enormous golden doors to the temple were closed, cutting off the light from the setting sun. I was left alone, without instruction, to prepare myself for my forthcoming ordeal, 7 days of examination by the greatest minds in the world. My first thoughts were not of myself or the examination, but of Mariku. The music of her name kept a melody and a rhythm in my heart. Mariku. In Egyptian it could mean many things, and I tried to think of them all. Mary Goddess, perfected woman, eternal virgin, mother of God, mother of the radiant God, virgin mother of God radiant. Yes, her name could mean anyone, or all of these at the same time. It pleased me to muse upon the sweetness and the music of the name. It pleased me more to muse upon the glorious person of the living goddess who bore that name. Before long, however, my mind turned to less hallowed but more structured thinking. I sat upon the straw mat and began to review in my mind what I knew about the Egyptian religion. After hours of thinking, I began to imagine that I was in the presence of a mighty host of priests and that I was asked questions. These questions I answered in my mind. It did indeed seem that the questions were asked by the whispers of wind in the giant temple. When I answered them, it seemed that my thoughts were turned into words by the resounding statue of Osiris. Perhaps it was merely the thoughts of my brain echoing in my head. But I answered questions and still more questions, and here is a summary of what I said, or was it thought, in this, the second most important trial of my life. The Egyptian religion is the mother of religions. It contains in its mystic depths all religions, both exoteric and esoteric. It is the source of all beliefs. Complicated as it seems, it is in reality quite simple. In the outer sense and common practice, it is nothing more than a screen for a sacred and secret inner training. For instance, it is said to have many gods, over 1,000 gods, at least one for each day 3 times over. But in truth, it has but one God. As proof of this, let me quote from writings over 13 centuries old. This concerns Amun, the supreme God. Thus it was written, Amun came into being at the beginning of time. His mysterious nature cannot be known. No God was in being before him. There is no other God equal to him. No one may know his form. Amun had no mother after whom his name might have been made. He had no father, and no one begat him. He rose out of his own eternal force, mysterious of birth, created by his own radiance, the divine God who came into being because of himself. Amun is not found in heaven or in hell. He cannot be known. His image is not displayed. His name is not made in the writings, for no one may bear witness to him. He is mysterious and unknowable. His might and majesty may not be disclosed. He is too mighty for men to ask about him or even mention his name. He is too powerful to be known. Whoever utters his mysterious name, wittingly or beginning of time, his mysterious nature cannot be known. No God was in being before him. There is no other God equal to him. No one may know his form. Amun had no mother after whom his name might have been made. He had no father, and no one begat him. He rose out of his own eternal force, mysterious of birth, created by his own radiance, the divine God who came into being because of himself. Amun is not found in heaven or in hell. He cannot be known. His image is not displayed. His name is not made in the writings, for no one may bear witness to him. He is mysterious and unknowable. His might and majesty may not be disclosed. He is too mighty for men to ask about him or even mention his name. He is too powerful to be known. Whoever utters his mysterious name wittingly or unwittingly falls into instant death. The soul in which his name is hidden too is mysterious and may not be known to men. But let comfort come among men. For though Amun is hidden, all gods are 3. These are Amun, Re, and Pa. There is no second to these. Hidden forever is the name of the Supreme when he is shown forth as Amun, but Re is his face, and Pa is his body. Though 3 in aspect, he is but the Supreme One. Amun, Re, Pa, one Supreme God out of 3. Truly then, the many gods are but adorable aspects or qualities of the one supreme, hidden, unnameable God, who is called Amun. Egyptian religion teaches of Sekhet Aru, field of reeds, a heavenly homestead which is the death right of those who have lived purely. Here the everlasting spirit will enjoy in paradise a life of ease and abundance. Egyptians believed the soul to be immortal when pure, and that the soul risen from the dead can recognize family and friends and live happily in heaven after the death of the body. Resurrection of the physical and spiritual body is also taught, and the physical body becomes the body or house of the soul after they are both risen from the dead. Egyptians believe the dead will live again in the identical bodies they had on earth, provided that in the physical body they have lived good, pure lives. They mummified and preserved the physical body so that the spiritual body could germinate or develop itself within that body in preparation for resurrection to live in heaven with other souls equally good and divine. Egyptians believe that there shall be a judgment of the soul of the individual by the mighty God. In this judgment the good are rewarded with everlasting life and happiness. The wicked are eaten by the eater of hearts. But to get to the moment of judgment, the soul has to traverse the length of the underworld or hell. His way is barred by many avenging gods who will strike him down unless he knows their names, their functions, and words that will appease them. They believe in the virgin birth of a mediator between God and man. In not less than 7 trinities of the gods, they show the sacred aspects of the creation of the Savior out of the Virgin Mother. The most adored trinity is Osiris, Isis, and Horus. Osiris was a human king, killed and raised at last to eternal life by the love of his wife, Isis, and the power of his virgin born. Son, Horus. Horus, the hawk-headed, which is but a symbol of spirit born, is the mediator between Osiris and man. Osiris is but the aspect of the unnameable god, Amun, when concerned with humanity and love. Egyptians believe that ceremony and proper words may help to raise a man into favor with the God of judgment and therefore into heaven. Much of their ritual is made up for this purpose, and all of their funeral scripts are devoted to this end. This magic is written upon papyrus and placed in the tomb of the dead, and is believed to help his passage through the place of purgation or judgment into heaven. Even in their processions of the dead, the priests repeat the words for the dead, thus helping his spirit in its doubtful journey to eternal heaven. Around these beliefs, the priests fashioned a religion that ensnared the mind of the individual and made him obedient to the ways of the people. But these seem not to have been the true priests, for even 4,000 years ago, the things which were prepared for the dead to say to the God of judgment show both external and internal meanings. Let me quote this from the things to be said in the hall of truth before the throne of judgment. Homage to you, great God, master of all truth. I have come, O Lord, to understand your mysteries. I know you, your name, and the names of the 42 gods who are with you in the hall of eternal truth. I have come to you in truth. I have brought rightness and truth to you. I have destroyed wickedness for you. In truth and fear of judgment I swear. I have not done evil to mankind, oppressed members of my family, brought evil in the place of right and truth. I have not done evil, demanded excessive labor for small pay, sought undeserved honors, punished servants unjustly, and I have never even thought ill of the gods. I have not defrauded the oppressed one of his property, caused pain, made any man suffer or hunger or anyone to weep, nor done anything which is an abomination to the gods. I have not done murder or caused murder to be done. I have not defrauded the temples of their oblations, stolen the cakes of the gods, carried off the offerings, the spirits of the dead, committed fornication, polluted myself in the holy places of the gods of my temple. I have not cheated in measure, stolen land, encroached upon the field of others, taken milk from babes, or driven away cattle which were upon others' pastures, or snared the fowl in the preserve of the gods. I have not baited fish with their own kind, turned back water at the time it should flow, diverted a canal of running water, put out a light that should burn, defrauded the gods of their meat offerings, stolen cattle from the gods or their priests, or repulsed God in his manifestations. I am pure. I am pure. I am pure. My purity is that of the Bennu. Let not evil befall me in this hall of eternal truth. I know the names of the gods, and I believe in the great God supreme. Such a confession is but personal testament to obedience to the 10 great commandments, and apparently has no connection with a secret religion. But even this great statement of morals seems to be part of a total training in secret belief. This secret belief seems to be the core of true Egyptian religion. If we would understand this eternal religion, we must understand the secret belief. I shall now try to remove the screen and show the inner religion. Let us begin with the very structure of the Egyptian Empire. The Egyptian body politic has always been like the body of man, while the priestcraft has been like to the mind of man. The body serves and supports, the mind enlightens and enlarges. The relation of both to the pharaoh is most interesting. The pharaoh comes to office as a man, but is immediately made into a god. He is then the god of Egypt, and Egypt is the body of the god. As the god, he needs no administration of the priests. Of the religion, he is above religions of all kinds. This very structure seems to me to have been developed by men who understood the relationship of mind to body and body to radiant being. For only when the mind has been set aside can the radiant being come forth out of the body. Rather, when the radiant being comes forth, the mind must be set aside. Yet at no time can the body be set aside. It must be under the keeping of the guardian mind. These then represent a secret belief. The empire becomes the symbol of the true religion of Egypt. Let us see if this thesis can be supported by reference to other facets of Egyptian belief. For instance, let us see what comes to us out of examination of the Egyptian concept of 9 bodies. Most other religions conceive only 7 bodies, but the Egyptians say there are 9 each. Body has a specific function and also a connection with all the other bodies. These 9 bodies are grouped into 3 units of 3, and, as you will see, are for the purpose of eventually producing one perfected body, a radiant God that can dwell with the gods in heaven. Ren, or name, is the first of the 3 physical bodies. It is all important to the individual, for when it is spoken, there is creative power. The name, therefore, is to be preserved, for each time it is said there is new life energy available to the individual. Ka is the second of the 3 physical bodies. It is the totality of the physical essence of the individual, with all the raw and untamed forces of creativity. It is subject to decay, yet it is also the source for a higher body, therefore it must be preserved as the temple from which grows the higher body at the appropriate moment. Ka is the third of the 3 physical bodies. It is the double of the physical body and is the abstract individuality of the person. It is made of all the acts and deeds of his life, including his name, and is incorporeal. It can dwell in the tomb or the mummy or the living body. It can wander about at will and can even dwell in any statue of the individual. I think at a later date than the true religion, it was said to be capable of eating and drinking and was fed cakes and water as part of the many religious rituals. These 3 bodies make up the physical body. They consist of the Father concept, name, the Mother concept, body or earth, the Holy Ghost or double, and the 3 make one. That one is the basis of higher bodies. The second of the 3 groups of 3 bodies consists of those having to do with the emotions, the mental-emotional makeup of the individual, that is with the heart. Ab, the first of the emotional mental bodies, is merely heart. It is the center of spiritual thinking. Whatever good or bad the individual does is written in the doomsday book of the heart, according to Egyptian thought. The judgment has to do with the weighing of the heart against the feather of perfect truth. For each bad act of a life adds weight to the heart. The second of the emotional, mental bodies is the soul of the heart. It can assume material form at will, a fact that is shown by the symbol of the human-headed hawk. The heart soul is developed out of the fleshly soul, or Ka, the Holy Ghost. The Holy Ghost is a support to the heart soul, giving it substance and residence. Kaibit, meaning shadow, is the name given to the third of the emotional mental bodies. It takes its essence from the heart and is a duplicate, double, or Holy Ghost of the emotional mental bodies. It too can move and come and go as it wills. We should note that there are now 3 bodies that rise out of the physical or mental emotional bodies of man and take an independent movement or action. We should also note that up to now, all bodies are mortal, subject to death upon the destruction of the individual's body or heart. We turn now to the ethereal bodies, those which cannot die unless destroyed by the eternal powers of the gods. These bodies are therefore immortal if given a chance by pure, living on the part of the individual. Sekim, or vital power, is the first of these spiritual bodies. It is the vital force of the individual which becomes a non-material entity, a personification at spiritual level of human vitality and energy. This vital force, raised to spirit, dwells in heaven with the radiant gods, but it is not a god. This should be most carefully noted. Sahu, or spiritual body, is the name given to the second of the spiritual group. It is developed from the physical body, that is, the 3 lowest level bodies which make up the physical group. It is developed by the means of the words of power, the prayers and thoughts of the individual through all his life, and the prayers and thoughts of other persons concerning him. However, once it has been created, it takes on an existence of its own, no longer responsible to the physical complex that created it, but subject to the gods and their justice. While it partakes and is created by all the mental and spiritual attributes of the individual, once it is endowed with its own powers, its new life, it takes on a nature of its own. It, in turn, is the temple, habitation, or residence of a still higher body. Ku, or spiritual soul, is the third of the spiritual group. It is an ethereal being, an entity like unto the gods, a radiant being. It dwells in the spiritual body, and it is immaterial and cannot ever die, though it can be destroyed. Thus the spiritual soul is the last perfected, radiant body that rises in man. It seems to be the reason for man's existence. It grows out of and is housed in other bodies that have grown out of the physical group and the mental emotional group of bodies. It is that part of man which becomes an eternal God and dwells in heaven with the other gods. It would seem then that physical life upon the earth is for the purpose of preparing the immortal and everlasting Ku, or spirit soul. It would seem that every act, every thought, every word, and every emotion of the individual's whole physical life contributes to this end. What is the negative confession above but a glowing account of the fact that he has conformed to all of the physical and mental mores and morals of society? He has been a moral, good, obedient, kind man. He has, therefore, prepared his physical body and his mental emotional body for the development of the higher bodies. Now we come against An, imponderable. The individual has prepared the higher bodies, but they may never pass the barrier, the deadly night or judgment. Unless they pass that ordeal, they cannot become immortal and dwell in everlasting bliss in heaven. Rather, they will be destroyed by the fierce thing which eats all bad hearts. What is this fierce thing, this thing that causes eternal death both to the spiritual soul and body, and to the physical body? It is a god representing time, confinement, and physical corruption, is it not? Is this not a symbol to indicate that in a bad man the spiritual soul dies because it cannot escape the physical group of bodies? Let me see if I can document this thesis from the writings of the religion. Is it not supported by the very papyrus that is left in the coffin, or is wrapped between the legs of the dead? This is sometimes called the papyrus of the dead. But the Egyptian words are Ryu, Nu Per Em grew. No person has ever been able to translate those words to modern speech. But they are sometimes translated thusly: the day of putting forth one's utmost power, the day of making one's godhood manifest, the day of perfecting the spiritual self, or the day of conquering eternity. It refers to the morning after the night of journey through the lower hell, the terrible valley of darkness and desert, through the presence of the awful dead in the world of Thoth. The soul emerges triumphant, all-conquering, and becomes like Osiris. It has triumphantly risen out of death and the awful grave to morning light and eternal brilliance and bliss. It is clear, is it not, that the soul must have become like the God, become a very God indeed, to come forth on that day triumphant? From ancient papyri we have this quotation: "A triumphant soul speaking to his God, I came into being from unformed matter, like the God Khepera eternally recreating himself. I have dressed myself in the hard shell of substance, and I contain the germ of every God that was, is, or shall ever be. I am yesterday of the four quarters of the world. I am the God Horus, virgin born, who emits light from his divine body. I have come forth after the judgment night into this day. I am triumphant. I am a God." From an even more ancient writing, we have this declaration of a soul to the god Osiris: "I am the radiant soul of the supreme God, and have come from thee. Physical body of triumphant man, I am the creator of the divine food. That which is an abomination unto me is a sin whereon I do not look. I speak into being right and truth, and I live therein. I am the divine food which is not corrupted. That is, my body has been good and served as the feeding ground of my soul. Thus I gave birth unto myself out of my physical self, like unto the god Khepera. I came into being day by day. I am the God made of flesh, and the workers of iniquity shall never destroy my radiant being. I am the firstborn God of primeval matter, that is to say, I am the radiant soul. I have become the soul of God everlasting. My physical self has been the seed ground of eternity. My being is now everlasting, and is the Lord of time and the King of eternity. I have become master of my source of life, and I can easily pass through the abyss which separates earth from heaven." Some strange inner religious mystery is here. What is the meaning of so much stress upon mastery of time, space, and eternity? It is taught in Egyptian religion that the animal soul of the dead lives on the essences of the offerings which were made at the tomb where the physical body is laid. It is believed that the spiritual soul may be destroyed in the other world if it displeases the god or his chiefs. But we know also that the supreme God and Osiris too were above this destruction. In our mantra, as quoted above, the spiritual body has become equal to the supreme God, equal to Osiris. That is beyond all destruction. We see also this radiant soul came into being day by day, creating itself out of the physical group of bodies and out of the mental emotional group of bodies. We must be alert to this. The source of the mantra in the Papyrus of the Dead is said to be the god Thoth, that is, Hermes. He was the scribe of the gods. He spoke the creative word of the supreme God, and whatever he said was truth. He spoke, and the physical world was created. His word was the vital essence of life. From this has come into the religions of the world the idea that the chief priest is infallible, that when he speaks, it is truth. In the Egyptian religion, we also get the strong belief in the hekau, or words of power. It is believed that if anything, good or bad, is spoken correctly by a person properly prepared, it will come into being. The word can influence time, it can erase distance, it can affect all physical and spiritual things, especially people. Let me now develop one last portion of this thesis before conclusion. There seems to be within each individual the ability to develop several non-physical bodies. The Ka, or double, seems to be a temple for the heart soul when absent from its seat in the physical heart. These two, in combination, seem still to be called the Ka. This Ka has an independent existence and freedom of movement. The Kaibit, or shadow, seems to reside in the heart soul after it has been created out of the physical group of bodies. This seems to indicate a trinity of physical emotional souls that are one and can yet be three. We also have another trinity, the Sahu, or spiritual body, which is developed out of the physical group of bodies through the emotional mental group and becomes in turn the temple of the Ku, or spiritual soul. Thus, man in his day-by-day progression develops independent and powerful non-physical bodies that move about under some sort of mysterious control. This control seems not to be centered in the physical mind, the emotional mind, or in the spiritual soul. It is a mystery, a gap in my understanding of the magnificent religion of the ages. However, this condition, or should I say belief, supports my thesis that the true religion is secretly hidden in plain sight in the external religion of the Egyptians. Knowing that the Ka, or physical soul, and the Ku, or spiritual soul, can each have independent movement, let me quote the writing of Thoth, and remember that every word he spoke became reality. The spiritual soul speaks, "I am yesterday and tomorrow. I was forever and forever will be. I have the power to be born a second time. I am the radiant hidden soul which creates the gods and gives vital essence to the divine beings hidden in the underworld, in Amenti, and in heaven. I am the Lord of those who are risen out of the flesh, the Master who comes forth out of the darkness of the tomb. I work for all the bodies, and we travel on joining hands each to each." May I interrupt the words of the god Thoth to ask, is the power which guides the many bodies hidden in the phrase, "We travel on joining hands each to each"? But let me finish the quotation. "The strength which protects me is the same that keeps my physical soul, my Ka, under its protective power. O gods, you are in me and I am in you. Your attributes are my attributes. My bodies are the bodies of the God, and the radiant hidden soul, Khepra, the ever-recreating self. My bodies are the bodies of the God, and Khepra, the ever-recreating self. I may enter in as a man of no understanding. I shall come forth in the form of a strong physical soul. I shall look upon my form, which shall be that of men and women forever and forever." Masters, I conclude on this evidence that the Egyptian religion has within it a master secret which is hidden behind master secrets. This must be the true religion, the eternal principle which all men everywhere seek. The partial understanding of this eternal principle must be in the outer and also in the hidden and secret religions of all the races, but only here in Egypt can the total truth and the final secret be found. When I had finished, the thought voices in my head ceased, and I could not hear my own thoughts echoing within my brain. The sound of the unlocking of the golden doors startled me. The sound of their opening was followed by in-streaming sunlight, and my eyes hurt like those that have long been denied the life-giving light. The sound of music burst through the temple. The priests came in, one following the other, led by the three wise men. "Jeshua Joseph Bar, Joseph, you have passed your 7-day trial." It was the voice of Melchior, and there was great joy and cheering by the priests. Then Melchior continued, "You have proved that you can send and receive thought, and that you have passed the highest level of mental and emotional training known to man. Rise up, master of men, and receive the sacred jewel of your office." I rose to feet that stung from long disuse and legs that trembled for want of exercise. Before the jewel could be placed upon my neck, I heard the glorious voice of my father. "My son, my son, my spirit-born son, in you I am well pleased. You are risen as high as any man has ever risen, and you have earned the adoration and adulation of the entire world. No man before you has been able to take the next step. All have died in the final effort. Knowing this, will you take the jewel of Master of Men and be content? Or will you deny the jewel and strive toward almost certain death to serve your fellow initiate and your fellow man?" I wanted the glowing jewel, but I wanted to see my beloved father and looked about for him. His voice had seemed to come from beyond the statue of Horus, beyond the purple rug. I stepped toward that place. A strange power seemed to force me on, and I could not stop my staggering because my legs were disobedient to my conscious will. I stepped across the golden cord and came to rest sitting in the center of the magnificent rug. There broke forth around me such cries of joy and gladness, such praises and high hosannas that I thought the angels sang like they did at the birth of Zarathustra or of Buddha. The priests knelt before the rug and me, and the hierophants came and knelt. The 3 wise men knelt, and every person took off his sacred hat and placed it before me upon the floor. I looked at them in consternation, for I realized that I had somehow made a choice that pleased them greatly, but caused fear in some